So, welcome everybody. I'm still getting used to the mic and hearing my own voice, but it's gonna be fine. So, my name is David. I came from the Czech Republic. Just we actually brought you some souvenirs in the form of hashlepky and kofola after the day. If you want some, like we actually stopped in the last city in the supermarket. I'm also running on kofola because I haven't slept in the last few days. I was traveling a lot from between Prague and Brno. So, as I said, my name is David. I work for a company you probably don't know, or you do. You would ask, does Microsoft do Ruby? My answer is I don't know. This is my second month there. But you might ask me later. I work on identity management and data ingestion stuff. But today I'm going to talk to you about some other projects, some open source that I used to do at my previous job that you cannot see, but you can see in my shirt. So we're going to build, and also I'm doing part-time a PhD. I'm a PhD candidate. I do research around what's going to happen to society when autonomous vehicles take over the roads. We can talk about that later. But today we're going to build a zoo. Because you need an information system for a zoo, right? You do Rails new, zoo, API. You only want an API, that's talk, so why we don't have front end. And I already noticed that I made a mistake in the ER model, but this is how, let's say, a zoo could look like. You have sections of the, does the pointer work? No, it's not visible, never mind. So on the left side in the upper left corner, you see sections. So the zoo is divided to sections. They have a name and a location. Each section has multiple cages. Those cages have a name and they have some sort of capacity. Then those cages contain, one cage can contain multiple animals. They have a name, they are either male or female. Then you also categorize the animals. So you have family of animals, and you have species. There are some fields on it, like Latin name, or how many legs or eyes they have, and there is this special unique field slot that we're going to talk about it later. I'm going to ask, is this clear? Everybody knows entity relationship models? My students this morning didn't know at the university, so some of them failed. So we're going to generate some models using a Rails G model. Everybody knows that. And if somebody didn't know how to read the ER model, this is the same stuff, except that one small mistake that we might not spot it, but basically belongs to has one true, clear, right? This is a requirement for the zoo management. They want some kind of data there, and they also want to have an API. So we list the sections. Underneath the sections, you can list the cages. You can look at one specific cage by ID. Same with the species, that what species are in one section, let's say reptiles, and what animals are in the reptile section, let's say. Also, what cages are there, and at the end, what animals. Then you also want to probably have some kind of catalog of what kind of animals in total are in the zoo. Nested resources, right? So you're going to do your race generate controller, and do some kind of routes. Guess it's kind of trivial. You have some resources, under resources, under resources. But you probably know that nested controllers aren't really trivial. Like, I was looking and haven't really found any universal solution for it, and I might be brave enough to provide you one, but some people might get mad at me for that. We'll see at the end of the talk. By saying nested controllers aren't trivial, I mean that you could have these red marked endpoints, and as you see, they have different parents. So species can have the parents of the section, but also families. Same with animals under cages or species. And you want to do dry, like don't repeat yourself, and you don't really want to have separate controllers for that. Obviously, you can do that. You can specify your own controllers manually and have different kind of logic to retrieve data there. But I was thinking about how to avoid it. And actually there is a cool thing in Rails routes that you can pass some additional data into it for, let's say, a parent hierarchy. Is anybody here who knew this feature? One, two, oh, you knew it because you worked for me. So. He was my intern. Anyway, the people who knew it, do you know how can you access this context? You don't count. It actually gets into the parents variable. So if you set the parents, you can access it from the controller as parents. So you have a very ingenious way of how to know where are you deep in the hierarchy and modify your logic based on that. Yes, that's clear. So let's say we want to implement the sections endpoint. As you see here, we have an owl house with some coordinates, and we have a lizard then. And in order to get this data, obviously, our Rails generates few dozen work kind of APIs. You need a serializer. To have a serializer, you look at the model, and you set your attributes. This is actually using under the Panko, so it just forwards the method. I mean, Panko with a little bit of twist, but you have two attributes. Also, Panko, or the serializer we have, can add additional attributes from methods. So if you want to have something evil there, you just define the method on the model, and you specify it as an attribute. Easy. Let's go for cages. You have a small cage and a large cage. One of them has a capacity of 3, the other one has a capacity of 10. Also, there is a dynamic field called utilization. Obviously, you need to calculate it somehow. So, you have your serializer, you can set up the name and the capacity, but if you want fields from another data model, then your serializer isn't enough, you need to do a join. And what we wanted to do with this thing, that we wanted to avoid manual joins. So we came up with something called the derived attribute, where you can pull data, specify data that you want to pull from another source. So in the serializer, you can specify a derived attribute, which is called location, that's coming from a relationship section. See the belongs to, and the section down there. And from that table, you're getting the location. There is some magic under the hood that automatically joins you the section table when you need it. Basically, you need to have that hierarchy properly set up and need to know where you are in the route, which you do using that parents. Then there is another thing called aggregated attribute, or something called like utilization. That it's a similar logic. You set up an attribute, set up an aggregated attribute, set up on which table you're doing it. So the cage has some animals, and you specify some kind of RL magic that does the join and aggregation for you. Join not the aggregation. I don't really want to go into the details here because it would take like half an hour and it would hurt your head. You guys here will probably talk about it later. So we have these simple fields. There is a bit more, but I would like to talk about like what happens under the hood. So whenever you request for data, you first joins with the parents. You know your parents because you have it from the parents hierarchy. Then you join with associations, like derived attribute from the serializer. So you can ask the serializer, like, what do I need to be able to render this field? And the serializer in the static method can tell you, like, hey, you need these. Then you join with the aggregation, saying you ask the serializer knows what the data it needs, you can ask it, it tells you. Then based again on the serializer, you only select those fields you need. So you have a very complex dependency relationship simplified by this. We can debate about if it's the right place for the serializer, but probably not. We we will debate about it. Then there are also stuff like searching, sorting, pagination. I guess that's trivial for everybody. And how we do that under the hood, like there is some kind of logic which belongs to has many, and then we automatically join with it. The answer is this really nice method in Rails. Who knows this? Not so many people. So yeah, I'm teaching you something new. Great. So when joining with parents, you can go through some certain associations with your relation, reduce blah, blah, blah. And on the third line, you have scope, reflect on association that looks for you up the has many thing. You can check for primary key, you can check for it's a one-to-one or one-to-many, that kind of things. And you can check if it's already joined, actually. Pretty easy. And you can do the join, and also you can set the where clause, because you have everything in that reflection. So you can do class primary key equals ref foreign key. Obviously for this, you need the right parameter logic. You need to have convention over configuration everywhere and name things properly, which we didn't do, and we have views, and that's another craziness we can talk about, but this is what it is at this point. So how a controller looks like, very simple. All the controllers look like this. So we have some rendered JSON, we have some fetch collection when we pull all the data. This is the process I said. There is also something called expand resource, which is basically the same, and then we do a find on it for a single resource. We define the resource, so what to join against, and we define the class of the serializer. And under the hood, the whole thing just prepares you all the data, only the data you need. One more cool thing, and I really wanted to add more examples with animals, but what if you don't want to have IDs in the URL? Like you wanna look up families using Castoridae, and you wanna look up your Bober, because we are in Poland. And you have this slug field, in which I said it's unique. Let's say for the Bober record, we set it the family for Castoridae, I hope we will pronounce it properly, and slug for the species Bober. It's unique. We implemented something called indexable, which basically does a lookup on the slug first and then on the ID. We work with UUID, so basically validate if it's not a UUID, also try to look up against Bober. I know it's a timing attack, not safe thing, but we were good enough with it. It's an ugly hack. What else we do? For compliance reasons with other apps, there is bundled integration, so RBAC authorization, authentication, everything is into that. I had a lightning talk last year in Switzerland about how we do that, how you can do merge multiple queries together if they have query conditions that are deep, because Rails doesn't do it well. We actually had to write an RL3 parser for it. We also do checking the hierarchical integrity, which means that if the IDs don't match up, like you have a correct ID for Bober, but you're not looking it up in the Castoridae family, but another one, you will get a 404. There are checks for that, and there we have actually ensured that it's a constant complexity kinda, so timing attacks are impossible because we serve data there that it is. And we are at Zendesk, so somebody here maintains strong parameters or stronger params, right? Thank you. We love it. So we integrated it into that. And it works well, I hope. Another cool thing that you will ask Janos about it is testing. Because everything is uniform and well specified, you just need very simple YAMLs, let's say for searching. When you test searching, you just need factories that you want to be found and factories you don't want to be found. And we built a query. And we built a whole framework around this. There is also something like this for sorting, so you just specify a list of that and the order in which you want. Obviously, it can be automatically reverse order, things like that. Retrieval and all these other tests are automatically generated because it's the uniform access everywhere. Good thing with these YAML files is that you can use LLMs to generate them, and I think he might have some examples on how to do it. It's fun that you don't have to write the stuff. The source is available under my former company's repo. The app is actually used for security compliance. We store their policies profiles, so not really a zoo, I'm sorry for that. It's a REST API written in Rails, so yes, Red Hat does Rails and Ruby. And you would say if it's a good idea to store logic in serializers. Definitely not. Like, I would like to, or probably the guys would like to extract this into an open source project, give it a name, and find a much better place for where to store this kind of hierarchical logic so you can build APIs with it. So thank you, and if you have questions, ask my former colleagues because I no longer work on this project. Also, Roman here is the maintainer of RSwag. So if you are using, that guy. So if you are using OpenAPI, or you would like to use OpenAPI and RSwag, please talk to him. Also, one feature that I would love to see as an externist of this project is to generate the OpenAPI spec from those hierarchical specifications, because it's actually possible. Thank you very much. Roast me. Please.
But it's not about this presentation, sorry.
Can I work in Windows, please?
You mentioned about your previous talk in Switzerland with RL. Is it anywhere available in internet?
Yes, if you look for my name, you should find it on YouTube. Unfortunately, I had to make these slides on a deadline from my company computer, and we have a policy for not accessing YouTube, so sorry.
That's all, thank you.
It's actually fun.
Have you had success teaching people all that magic? Because it looks cool, but then when you look at this controller, you don't even necessarily know where to click to go to some definitions. So how do you teach people to use it?
Testing him.
Yeah, so I really did not have any problems with it.
He was an intern.
Yeah, so when I joined Red Hat, this is what I started learning. So.
Documentation, and explaining stuff. Did I answer your question? We'll talk more. Yes? They manage it without me now? Didn't collapse it yet, right? Please.
Okay, go.
When I have these nested relationships, I also have the impulse to organize my URLs with all the parents in the URL because it looks more cozy and more organized. But nowadays, I don't see any benefit. If I have the ID of the last element, why not to go to the last element directly instead of? I don't see any benefit of the whole parenting in the URL.
5 million records. 5 million records in the DB. Like, you need to have some kind of hierarchy above it where, like, we have a scale where indexes not necessarily work. I mean, the 5 million maybe. But our problem was that the records sometimes need something from the parent, and one record could have multiple parents. So then the hierarchy makes sense. I'm not sure if it's efficiently written here, but if you look at the model, then this is the hasn't belongs to many, the cage and the species. And there you might have that problem because multiple kind of species can have multiple cages.
Okay, I have to think about it.
But hasn't belongs to many basically is the key. that sometimes the parent or the hierarchy matters. We have compliance policies, and those are in various industry standards. Under the policy are rules, and the rules can be part of multiple policies. So it really matters in which one you are, and they have ISO standard design names based on the parent. Thank you.
One more. Okay.
I'm not sure if I got it correctly, but if I define the structure and the serializers, it can generate for me the tree for joins and includes. So,
Yes.
Please help me. So he doesn't have to jump out. Excellent.
So my question is, you mentioned that this diagram has some errors, some faults. I think I know what is the fault, but could you explain us how does this diagram is wrong? Thank you.
I think the arrows between section and family are the opposite, or something like that, right? Compared to the has many that I had in the model.
Nice. Okay, thanks.
I think the relationship is not necessary.
It doesn't matter, it's just an example.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. And just one question about configuration of those joints and that builder. As far as I remember, it was that slide you specify association here. So my question is how is it flexible? For example, if I don't want to use like Rails, like database joints, I want to use something from cache. For example, if you know identity cache, can I wrap it in some serializer, right? It's redefined somehow how I resolve view from another association from parents using, I have to always define these methods to resolve something, for example, from cache or something. Okay. Yeah. Okay, it's cool.
Unfortunately, but we can talk about that, or you can talk with them about better ideas where to put this.